All right. Let's go to we'll go in PTR order. Ariana, did you ever get to ask your question?
Oh, just call me Timber. Sure. I would like to ask a question. I heard Matt Slick say earlier that it establishes that God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility in virtue of the impossibility of the contrary. Right. Um, so, what you mean by that, is it the case that what you mean by that is that all other non Christian worldviews are logically impossible? Is that what you mean by impossible to the contrary?
I would lean towards that statement as logically impossible.
Right, so what we mean by logically impossible is that for any worldview that doesn't start with the Christian presupposition, right, is going to entail a conjunction of two inconsistent propositions, namely P and not P, correct?
Are you an atheist?
Sure, but can you, answer my question? Do you agree
Okay,
with that characterization?
could you repeat the question, please?
Right, so do you agree with what we mean by logically impossible is that there is going to be a set of two inconsistent propositions, namely in the conjunction of P and not P?
No, I'm not going to go with that. P, not P, modus tollens. So I'm not sure where you're trying to lean this or do what you're trying to do. What's your question?
My question is, how exactly are you going to derive the entailment that all other non-Christian worldviews are logically impossible?
Because they are not Trinitarian.
Well, but that's just a repetition of the claim, right? The claim is
Okay,
that all
you're familiar with
right?
universals and particulars, right?
I am, but I don't see how
Okay.
this is relevant to discerning whether or not all other worldviews are logically impossible. I can certainly talk about the metaphysics of universals if you want, but that isn't my question. My question is,
Hey, hold on a
how
sec.
is it?
Do you want me to answer the way I want to answer, or do you want me to submit to exactly how you want me to answer? Which is what you want?
Well, you might
Answer the
certainly
question, please.
learn that
Which one
from
do
me.
you want? Which one do you want?
I want you to answer my question directly without restating what the claim is.
Okay,
Right?
so you want me to answer the way you want me to answer you. Okay, guess what? I'm not going to play that game. I answer the way I want to answer. You want to work with me on that? We can have a conversation. You don't want to work with me on that? We don't have a conversation.
So, Matt Slick, it sounds to
You
me like when
accept it?
you
You
say
accept it or you don't accept it? Which is it going to be?
Matt Slick, it sounds like you're admitting to me that you want to answer in such a way that you would want to beg the question against me, like
Can you
no
answer
holds
my
barred.
question? Answer my question,
Right.
please. I've had thousands of conversations with atheists who do what you do. You try and work a conversation to a very, very narrow specificity, and you want things that way. I'm telling you, I'm not going to do that. Do you want to continue having a conversation?
I am having a conversation.
I didn't ask you if you are. I said, do you want to
Quite clearly, I
continue?
am because I'm still here.
Can you answer the questions then?
Sure.
Okay.
But
Answer
first,
is
you have to
yes.
answer mine.
First, I have to do what?
First, you have to answer mine. How
I
is it the
do?
case?
I have to?
Well, you do. You didn't give me a non question begging response to what I said.
Who says I don't have to give or I can't give a question begging response?
I mean, you surely are within your rights to give a question begging response. It's still fallacious reasoning, nevertheless. So, do
And
you
why
want to
is question
admit
begging fallacious?
it's an informal fallacy in classical logic and rhetoric?
Do you presuppose the validity of the laws of logic?
Presuppose. I mean, I
Do
don't
you
think I would
presuppose?
categorize it. I don't think I would categorize it
Do
that way.
you
I employ it.
do you presuppose the validity of the laws of logic?
No,
You don't? So then do you use the laws of logic to validate the laws of logic and therefore beg the question and your thing you're trying to prove?
no, because I'm not making an argument for the laws of logic.
I
So how
asked
can
you
I be begging
about
the question?
I asked you, you're not listening. I asked you about the issue of begging the question. Everybody begs the question. You do and I do.
The
For
argument
you
for
to
that.
For you to say, I cannot assume the thing to be true I'm trying to prove, I don't accept that. Just as you, if you're going to say I can't do that, then you cannot use logic without demonstrating to me that you have the basis for how you can justify logic is true, because you're begging the question in your argumentation.
That
You're
would be
presupposing the thing you want to conclude with as being valid to use. I'm doing the same thing. Why do you have a double standard then?
right. So look, that would only make sense if and
Ah,
only if I'm arguing for the laws of logic, which I haven't given an argument for the laws of logic.
okay, so let's
So
try it
that's a
again. Are you
failure.
ready?
That's a failure on your part, sir.
No, it's not. It's a failure on yours. Do you
It's
presuppose the
only
validity?
the case. It's
Excuse
only the case that I'm begging the
me.
question if and only if I'm engaging in an argument for the existence of the laws of logic. I didn't give an argument, so how can I be begging the question?
You're saying, and you're trying to be clever, but I'm trying to be clever too. Do you
And
assume?
you're failing
Do
at
you do you assume the validity of
and
the
you're
laws of
failing at
Do you assume the validity of the laws of logic?
Do I assume it? I already said no.
You don't. So you don't assume their validity, then how do you know they're valid? What method
It's
do
not
you
an
use?
epistemic issue.
It is. I asked you, how do you know? Because you say you don't assume their validity, yet you use them as a recourse in your logic against as you're trying to argue against me. You are employing the laws of logic as you're trying to work with me. Part of the issue of the precondition for
Correct.
let me finish. Part of the issue dealing with the precondition for intelligibility, which is what I'm arguing about, is the very nature of the laws of logic, which you are employing, and yet you can't defend, and yet I can from my perspective. So if my perspective can give you a defense for why they're valid and yours cannot, how is it that your perspective is something to be taken seriously if you're going to argue against mine? Since it's the ultimate issue of that which is the precondition for all intelligibility.
See, that's
You
all
wanted
fine.
logic. I'm asking you. I'm playing big
That's
boy.
all
We got
fine
big
and
boy pants
dandy,
on here.
but
Can you answer the question now?
sir, that's all fine and dandy, but notice how you burden shifted when I asked you how the
Can't answer?
contradiction would be derived in all other worldviews, and you couldn't answer that question
I was,
without
and
a
I asked
question
you.
begging argument,
I said, because it's Trinitarian. Why did I then
which is
go
to
in?
repeat the
Let me
claim,
finish. Let me finish. Why did I then go into the issue of the universals and particulars after I mentioned the Trinity?
because you don't know anything about philosophy and you have to bring up irrelevant stuff.
Oh, okay. So, can you explain to the room? Because I don't know anything about philosophy. I don't know. That's your proclamation. Can you now tell the room, because I'm going to draw the connection, why the issue of the one and the many, the universals and particulars, is so important in philosophy and logic and epistemology? Can you tell us?
I can get to that question, but first you have to respond to my
Okay.
question you failed
So,
to respond to.
So
So how
I
is it
am
the case
answering the question the way I
you
want to
aren't?
answer the question. You don't want me to
You're
answer the question.
deflecting.
I'm
You're
bringing the issue of
deflecting.
the Trinity and the nature. You're not listening because
You're
the
deflecting.
precondition for. Would you shut up for a second and let me answer you? Is it okay with you? I'm asking. Is it okay with you to keep quiet for a little bit?
Sure. Let's hear
Okay,
the flow
thank you.
reading.
Thank you. Shh. The reason I brought up the Trinity deals with the issue of the universals and particulars. Only in the Trinitarian context can we justify the solution that is presented by the universals and the particular problem, or the one and the many issue. No other worldview has that basis by which intelligibility can then be justified based on that particular issue. Okay? Now, tell the room what it is. See, this is why I gave you the reason why I brought it up and what the answer is. Now, you said, I don't know anything about philosophy. Nothing. Okay, please tell the room and explain what the difficulty is, what the issue is with the one and the many problem. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I can get to your question in a second when you answer my original question. How is it the case that all
Uh oh.
other
Uh oh.
worldviews are non
Uh oh. Wait a minute.
contradictory?
Wait a
Without begging the question.
Something just happened. Yeah, there it was again. I got bored.
Yeah. Do you
You
want?
got bored of the original question that you couldn't answer without begging the question?
Your criticism of begging the question I threw back at you. You're the one who ignored it. I then
I
bring
wasn't
to you the
making an
issue.
argument. I
Would
wasn't
you
making.
let me finish,
So how can I
please?
be begging the question?
Okay, all right, never mind.
I
You
didn't
don't want
make an
you don't want to
argument.
talk. You don't want to talk, do you?
Yeah, so it's very.
No, you don't,
Mm.
because you interrupt constantly and don't respond.